It's the Center Fantasy Football Podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal!
Yes! Yes! This is my favorite part of the game.
Analyzing all of the league matchups week to week.
You can't win!
Get him a body bag! Finish him!
It is a bit above average.
I said this sucks, and basically so do you.
And discussing the boom, bust, and hidden gem players throughout the league.
We ain't found shit!
What the hell is Brett Favre doing here?
I'm in town to play the Dolphins, you dumbass.
Dan Marino should die of gonorrhea and rot in hell. Laces out.
Touchdown!
And here's your host,
Allow myself to introduce myself.
David Harbacken.
Hello and welcome to the Center Fantasy Football Podcast for Week 7 of Season 5. I'm your host, David Harbacken, joined by the Commissioner of the League, Mr. Gazelutsky.
Greetings, fellow league members.
It's apparently going to only be the two of us, as I guess Dr. Hockey's just a little too distraught to be here. Not officially, he's not answering. And the Millennials has not returned the call, but I'm not disappointed about that, being that he would be the only one with a victory this week, and I don't need to hear it. So I am not pressing the issue in the slightest. Anyway, let's get into the last week's results in this turning point of the season, as we have now approached the halfway point. We're actually going to surpass the halfway point of the season after this week. But before we do that, we will look back at last week's games. I guess let's start. I don't know. Where do you want to start? Want to start at the Blues versus the Tillett Trey team? Let's do that.
Yeah, let's start there.
Why not? So, this was actually a good game. Going into the game, both of these teams were, well, I don't know what they were, but I know what they are afterwards. Anyway, the Blues moves to 4-2 in fourth place, and Tillett Trey team drops to 3-3 with a 123.82 to 116.52 victory for the Blues, on the back of, I don't even know, really. I mean, I guess the Baltimore defense got 19. That was their highest scorer.
Interesting.
Yeah, they scored. The defense scored higher than all of their receivers and their quarterback. So interesting. Phillip Rivers with 16.32 points, 18.50 for Mike Evans. So he finally sort of showed up. Jay Brown, which Brown is this? I always get them confused. This one is John Brown. He ended up with
John Brown.
Right. He ended up with 15.3 points. Lamar Miller with 11, 9.9 for Devonta Freeman, 15.8 from Zach Ertz, who's just been great all season long, and Jermaine Kearse with 11.9. For Tillett Trey, only 14 points for Matt Ryan, 12 for Jordy Nelson, 20 points for Jordan Landry, 13, a mild showing for him. For Todd Gurley, 8.7 for Frank Gore, 4.2 from his tight end, and 10.5 from Pierre Garçon, who he finally played, 22 points from his defense, the Houston defense, and 11 from the kicker. I don't even know. I mean, I don't even know where to start on this game. I mean, this is just an average performance from both teams, the way I look at it. Matt Ryan disappointing. Jordy Nelson, we'll see how he does going forward with the Aaron Rodgers injury. I mean, that's a good score for Landry, certainly, against Atlanta. That was an interesting game with Miami surprisingly winning 20-17. But yeah, I don't really know. I mean, Phillip Rivers has been disappointing, and he continues to be. I mean, the real bright spot, I guess, is Devonta Freeman. I mean, not Devonta, Zach Ertz, 15.8 points. I mean, he's been very consistent throughout the season. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this game? I don't really have many. This is just a meh game. But a good win for the Blues.
Yeah, good win for the Blues. Ertz is having an amazing season, absolutely. He picked up Curse, the cast-off who's been around everywhere, but the Baltimore defense, he's one of the few teams that actually has the Baltimore defense instead of dropping them when they do well. A lot of teams make the mistake of just dropping them, and that costs them the win. This time, I think Baltimore actually he won because of it.
Is that a dig at me?
You're one of the many. Dr. Hockey, first of all.
All right,
It's always a dig somewhere at Dr. Hockey. Eventually, it always goes back to Dr. Hockey. But I think you've been guilty of that as well.
Uh-huh.
Other than that, like I said, it's two very interesting teams. Very average. You can tell that the Dalvin Cook situation for Kimball has really been making a difference now.
Yeah.
That was a powerhouse time for him. But Houston's defense with 22, that kept him in it.
Yeah.
This guy really misses Dalvin Cook.
And I'm actually surprised that Houston was able to come up with that kind of point total with J.J. Watt. The whole city just devastated. Have we had an update in the last 5 minutes? Showing crying and every step that the man took during that game when he was injured. I don't know how
Is the city still open? I thought it was closed. I thought that since he went down, that's it. Nobody could do anything.
That's what it seemed like there, especially during that broadcast. Let's check in again with J.J. Watt. See what he's doing right now. What is he having for lunch here today? Yeah. So no, surprising that they recouped and managed to get 22 points out of that game on a win against Cleveland. But yeah, other than that, really nothing. 1.7 points left on the bench for Tillett right there. Negative 0.4 for Jonathan Stewart. So he certainly played his best roster that he could. But it wasn't enough. And you're right. That Dalvin Cook injury really is hurting him. For the Blues, he left Keenan Allen on the bench with 9.5. Blount got 8.7, Riddick with 10.3, but other than that, he didn't really leave much on the bench, 28 points. So, really, this is just an example of two teams who played pretty much their best teams, put them forward, and, Lombardi edged them out. I don't think that there's much more of a story to this game than that. Tyrod Taylor was on, there's not really anybody that was on a bye. This is just, I don't know. I don't know. This is quite a nothing burger to analyze.
Yeah, well, it's just an average week. Now the season's gone. All the teams are pretty much in a logjam right now. So this game is pretty indicative of the season, actually.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next game. With that, we have the Nicky Baby versus Nick and Jamie game. This was a really close game. Nick just devastated by the Aaron Rodgers injury. He loses 116.02 to 121.88. Aaron Rodgers only gets 0.72 points because he goes down with the injury. If he plays, I think he clearly wins this game outright. 14.2 points from Will Fuller, 17 from Crabtree, Fournette with 21, 30 from Mark Ingram. I don't know where that came from. Jordan Reed with 7.7 and 16.4 from Devontae Adams. Not much from the kicker or the defense. For Nick and Jamie, with their newly revamped awesome team, they have 21 points from Brady, 29.5 from Antonio Brown, 11.1 from Alshon Jeffrey, 5.2 from Jones, 1.7 from C.J. Anderson with a disappointing game there against the Giants, 26 from Gronk and 10 from Rashad Matthews, and the New England defense gets 11. So, he did leave Adrian Peterson on the bench with 25 points. So this win could have been much worse, though it wasn't. Jacksonville finally turns in a kind of disappointing performance with only 4 points. For Nicky Baby, Emmanuel Sanders and Jackson got 12.8 points on the bench, but frankly, the receivers he put out there did a better job than the ones that are on his bench. So, it really came down to the Aaron Rodgers injury. That made the difference. Even had he played, which you wouldn't do, obviously, when you have Aaron Rodgers, but even if he would have played the horrific Bears quarterback, Trubisky, who got 11.72 points, he would have won. But I mean, you can't plan for that. So I mean, that's really the story of this game. I mean, the story of the season going forward for Nick and Jamie is going to be now, because previously we always talked about how they were a three-headed monster. All they had was Brady, Brown, and Gronk, and now they add Adrian Peterson to that mix, and they become a four-headed monster, and that becomes very dangerous as a team. So this is a big win and a good win for them. It moves them to 500 to 3-3, knocks Nick down to the log jam there. Nick could have been in first place, sole possession of first place, but misses out on that opportunity. But Nick and Jamie take advantage of their opportunity and really get themselves right back in the mix of everything with a 3-3 record. So, I don't know. Your thoughts on this game?
Well, this is just like the Kimmel Lombardi game. Very similar score, very low scoring. Low differential. Jones this time not producing as like he did last week. Otherwise, they would have been in solid control this one. Let's see. So Brady, Brown, and Gronk show up. Yeah, I think you're right. Once they get that fourth head and that four-headed monster now, these guys are going to be rough. You're going to have four people churning out ridiculous points every week.
Yeah.
These guys are going to be brutal.
Yeah.
Hopefully you played them before they got Peterson.
Although I didn't, and I'm playing them this week. So, yes, it's certainly brutal. I'm not happy about it, and that's why this is also a key win for them to get to get it without even Adrian Peterson in there. So, yeah. They're definitely on the upswing at this point. I mean, it's really anybody's game if you look at the league and the standings anyway, but they seem to be a team that, you got to watch out for, especially at this point. And like I said, Nick did all the right coaching moves here. It just didn't, with the Rodgers injury, that's really what this game comes down to. It just didn't work out because of that. But, 5-point victory, I don't know. In terms of Nicky Baby going forward with Rodgers out, he was a key cog in their team. What do you think the impact of that's going to be going forward? Because he was heavily reliant on Rodgers. So without that, I wonder how that's going to affect his team now.
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, Nick almost won this game. Nick and Jamie didn't pull it out until the Monday night game.
Yeah.
So he really kind of had to win this one because now it's kind of a situation where it's all just going to be smoke and mirrors for his team without Aaron Rodgers. He needs a solid quarterback in there. And that's been few and far between. There's been Deshaun Watson. That's been a bright spot. But other than that, quarterback is looking pretty slim out there. So he's got Tversky going for the Bears next week. It's going to be pretty rough for Nick.
Yeah. He's still got Fournette, who's good. I don't think Ingram is going to turn in this kind of performance again, though. Who knows? Maybe. I guess he got a boost from Adrian Peterson being gone. But yeah, I don't. It's going to be tough sledding going forward. I don't even know if you could count on Crabtree to get those kind of numbers. You traded away Fuller to me for Stafford, so at least it gives him a quarterback, but I just don't. He still has some receive. He still has Jackson. He still has Emmanuel Sanders. Terrell Pryor is garbage, as are all the receivers on Washington for the most part. But it's going to be a tough sledding going forward with Rodgers down. It just shows you that how in this league, week to week, you never know. One thing can just change a season, and this is a case where it very well might have done that. But good win for Nick and Jamie, and they're a team that you really have to look out for going forward.
Who would have thunk it? Once you got a three-headed monster, all you need is that fourth guy. Maybe I should draft like that next week.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to the next game. Black Ice Dynasty continues their winning streak with a 111 to 79.66 victory. Why couldn't this have been the week that Miner had last week? It kills me. This is the thing about Miner's. He ends up with a fortunate matchup in that the Lightning Rods only turn out 79 points. But this Jameis Winston, who had 20 points last week, gets 2.44, 2.9 from T.Y. Hilton, who had a ridiculous score last week. The other Brown, what is this? Jerron Brown, I think is his name. Yeah, he ended up with only 4 points, but then he was Melvin Gordon carried him along with Christian McCaffrey. I mean, those are two really solid running backs. 36 for Gordon, 22.4 for McCaffrey. Brait, who's been another great tight end with 19.6 points, and Kamara over in New Orleans gets 12.7. For the Lightning Rods, I mean, 25 from Newton, and Jay Ajayi finally showed up with 13, but other than that, not much. Tyreek Hill only 7.5, and Gabriel was 7.9. 2 for McGuire, the backup in for the Jets, and Kyle Rudolph with 9, and Martavius Bryant with 4.7. I mean, just an ugly game. I mean, and so the Lightning Rods have had the like, I mean, they've had some decent games. I mean, nothing like outstanding, but they've had the games where they can get, in the 110 to 120-ish range. And then they've had these kind of games where, like the one against me, where they got 59 and then the 79. So, I mean, they're doing kind of the same thing that Miner is doing, where it's like some weeks it's a huge score and then some weeks it's not. Um, but the problem, but I think the floor for Miner's team is much higher than the floor for the Lightning Rod team, and his ceiling is obviously way higher in terms of that. So, um, I think it's a fortunate for Miner in the scheduling here for the to get the win out of this game, because this was definitely a game where he would be vulnerable. But it all comes down to wins, and he got one. So, yeah.
Yep, yeah, definitely. LeBron's been hot. He's won a bunch of games now. He's on fire. He's tied for first place. He's one of 5 teams tied for first place. You don't want to mess with Black Ice Dynasty. They're for real. Nick and Jamie's for real. This is a tough season.
Yeah. And the Lightning Rods, frankly, I mean, they're 3-3. I mean, considering the up and down ness of their season, 3-3 is not bad. I mean, 3-3 is one game out of first place. So, I mean, as horrific as their horrific weeks have been, I mean, it's they're still right in it. So, I mean, if I'm the Lightning Rods, I'm feeling like I'm skating. I'm skating on thin ice, but he's still skating. So, I don't know what to say. He's still got a chance. I mean, everybody's got a chance except for one team. But
Poor Dr. Hockey.
I know. So, anything else on this game, really?
No, just Lightning Rods. Got another hot Miner team.
I mean, I think it's the opposite. I think that they got they had a horrific performance themselves. I mean, I think that's what it is. I don't think this was a Miner. I think Miner got away with one here. Is really more than anything. All right, well, let's move on to that. Let's move on to that Dr. Hockey game. House Targaryen drops to 0-6 in the game that he said that he would circle on his calendar playing the Millennials, but the Millennials end up saving their season at this point, because a loss here would have just been, it would have dragged both teams into the cellar. Now House Targaryen has sole possession of 12th place. Just a horrific performance all season long. I mean, the game itself was not horrific. 97.18 is their total to 106.54. This game was certainly in their hands. Carson Wentz with 27 points, 22 from Golden Tate. Julio Jones with 13. Duke Johnson with 6.9. Here's the real mistake that Dr. Hockey made, which was Andre Ellington with no points after Adrian Peterson comes in. Hooper got 11.8. Marshawn Lynch with 6.3. For the Millennials, Alex Smith cooled off a little bit with only 17.14 points. 7.8 from Amari Cooper, who's also been tremendously disappointing. But 18 from Kelvin Benjamin and 18 from Jordan Howard and 24 from McKinnon, who's been a great pickup for him. And then the rest of the roster, 5.4 and 5.8 for Cobb. But if you look at this game, I mean, the real story of this game was, the fact that it's clear he needed to play. He just needed to play Marshawn Lynch in the RB2 position, and then put in Evan Ingram at the flex or at the tight end and put Hooper down there, and he would have won. I mean, that's the difference in this game. no way around it. I mean, for the Millennials, he kept Marvin Jones Jr. on the bench and Aguilar with 15 points on the bench. Marvin Jones had 21 points. But, yeah, I mean, hockey has been playing games and shenanigans with his tight ends all season long. He seems to every week make the wrong decision on it, and this week he did again, and it cost him again. So, yeah, just a pitiful season. I don't know what to say. He's just making all the wrong moves, and look.
I'm not gonna be as brutal. Beautiful.
I'm just saying it's a pitiful season. I don't. I mean, I mean, I don't know how to quantify. I mean, like, I'm not necessarily blaming him, but I'm saying that he's made all of the wrong moves at all the wrong, like, I did it again. I mean, look, for the Millennials, I mean, he's got to feel relieved about this game because at 2-4, he could still come back and make a push for the playoffs. I mean, look, he picked up McKinnon, who's been really good. He still has Alex Smith. If Jordan Howard can perform, I mean, he could do all right. He's got to do something about Amari Cooper. But other than that, I mean, like, he has some pieces, and the McKinnon piece really does help him. But, I mean, he's still behind the 8 ball with a record in 2-4. But like I said, everything's so close. I mean, he's only, I guess it's 4 games out of first. But, I mean, out of a playoff spot, he's 2 games out of that. That's not really that much. So for hockey, it's pretty much over. He's playing for $5 a game at this point. But
well, hockey is the reason why you love being commissioner because you don't have to pay him back any money. His wages, of course, will go to somebody else, but it's nice. You don't have to pay hockey's $0.
Yeah,
he's a great customer.
Yeah,
he's my favorite customer.
Yeah. Don't even have to send anything at the end of the season at this point.
Don't even have to wire back any money.
Exactly. Just don't even think about it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say about that. We'll see if this can jumpstart the Millennials. Yeah, I mean, that's really the question. Whether or not this is a start or this is just him playing House Targaryen, and what are you gonna do? I don't know. Any other thoughts on this game?
Not really. Not really. I think that the Dr. Hockey show continues. We'll see what he cobbles together next week.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to a game that I know you have some thoughts about. Dave's Secret Crutch versus the Hackettstown Hagglers. A 130.88 victory to 93.60 for Dave's Secret Crush. Certainly, I know Lombardi is thrilled about this victory. Just for snooty rubbing in points or whatever it may be. Le'Veon Bell with 28.10 points to Doug Martin's 15.4. Now, to be fair, Stephon Diggs is out with the groin injury. That certainly hurt you there. I mean, Deshaun Watson, yayos, continues to perform well and keep your team in every game, 30.30 points. But your receiving core remains a problem. It was what you traded for to relieve that, and then Diggs ends up injured anyway, so you continue to have that problem. I mean, Doug Martin is still doing well, and Tevin Coleman with double digits, 10.6, but Funchess with only 6.6 and 5.5 were from Ricardo Montalban Lewis. Kittles and Bits with 8.6 and 5.6 from Crowder, so, and then you had the Atlanta defense, but yeah, they didn't do anything against Miami, which is kind of a shocker. For Dave's Secret Crush, picked up Roethlisberger out of the trash. He continues to play like trash, 14.88 points, but it didn't matter. DeAndre Hopkins with only 9.9, so actually, it would have been fine had your receivers performed a little bit better. Brandon Cooks got 15.3, and Abdullah only 5.4, 10.5 for Zach Miller, and Larry Fitzgerald really was a killer for you in this game, 27.8 points. Yeah, look, it's almost a 40-point victory here. I mean, I don't know. You can't account for the Larry Fitzgerald thing, though. He's been playing really well. I mean, other than that, kind of winnable. But you definitely need a little bit more. I mean, what was on the bench? I mean, you really left nothing on the bench. I mean, everybody's injured on your bench, and Cooper Kupp got 5. So, I mean, you played the best roster that you had. It just didn't.
Oh, yeah, look at that bench, my God. I've never seen a bench questionable. This whole bench is questionable. You guys want to play or what? I need guys who can play.
Yeah. So, I mean, you put your best lineup out there, but the problem is they're all injured. Or
the only line.
I know.
It's like another bye week.
I know. Lombardi, Eugene, all he left on the bench was Cohen, who got 10.44 points. He could have put him in the Abdullah spot. I wouldn't have necessarily done that. I mean, this seems to be the right move going into the game, playing Abdullah against New Orleans, and Cohen against Baltimore. I mean, I think that's certainly the right decision. Didn't turn out that way, but it didn't matter. So, good game for Eugene. He now moves into second place. And he's certainly one of the more dangerous teams now. I mean, he's one of those teams that's in the mix with everybody else right now, and he's in second place. And I mean, since the trade, he basically hasn't looked back. So, I mean, you could argue the merits of it back and forth as we have multiple times, but one thing that you can't argue is that it certainly has helped his team, because it absolutely has.
I would agree. You can't account for Larry Fitzgerald with that many points. I think it was Larry Fitzgerald Day at the stadium, so it was out of control.
Yeah. All right. That's all the games, right? I don't think there's any more games. There's nothing else that we have to talk about here now, right? Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah, we don't. I mean, there's that other game. I mean, the 1603ers versus the special team. But do we really need to, get into that?
Well, I guess we should, just for the hell of it.
I guess. Grown. So going into the game, the 1603ers were 4-1. The special team was 1-4. This was just a dreadful game for me to watch. The special team, the Whalers, ends up winning 109.94 to 107.70. Just a heartbreaking upset. So many things. I have actually so much to say. I'm just disgusted by this game. I'm disgusted by my coaching decision. I'm disgusted by everything about this game. I mean, I basically found the only combination of players that I could have done to lose this game. I mean, I can go through about 7 different mistakes that I made here. And then also to lose to the Whalers in a game where Ezekiel Elliott doesn't play. I mean, I know he's quote-unquote suspended, unsuspended, and whatever else, but this is the one week where there's nothing that the court system can do to let him play because he had a bye. I'm surprised that the judge didn't overturn the bye week at this point. But Drew Brees with only 17.54 points. Demaryius Thomas gets 21.30 points. That made the difference in this game, and we can talk about that in a second. But Michael Thomas with a disappointing 4.1. 24.5 points from Carlos Hyde. 9.3 from Crowell, which is still better than he's been doing. Dixon, the tight end, gets 7.6 and 9.6 for Allen. For the 1603ers, 32 points from their new quarterback, Kirk Cousins, so he performed well. And then, Hunt did his job with 16 points, 17.8 from Thompson and against San Francisco. Kelsey with only 7.7, and James White with only 8.5. So I can tell you, the real disappointment is 2.6 from Hogan and 7 points from Amendola. I mean, that's what killed me here. I mean, it's one of the many things that killed me here. There's so many things. I mean, especially when you lose by less than, by less than 3 points, it kills you. So, one, I dropped the kicker again. I mean, he came back to bite me again. He ended up with 12 points. The kicker I picked up for this week which was Hopkins against San Francisco, only with 9. Had I kept my old kicker, I would have won this game. Had I kept the Detroit defense, instead of picking up the Denver defense against the Giants, which I thought was a sure bet, I would have won this game. Had I played Austin Seferian-Jenkins, which I had mentioned this on Facebook, and it's totally true. I mean, all week I had a gut feeling that I should play Rastafarian in the flex position instead of White. I was kind of nervous about playing 3 Patriots. I ultimately chose not to do it, and that cost me. I mean, I basically came up with the only combination that would have lost me this game, and I did. And look, going into the evening game, the Giants versus Denver. I mean, I saw it happening. I saw Demaryius Thomas continue to get points, and I saw Denver continue to lose points. It was like, because I think at the start of the game, I think I had about a 30-some-odd point lead, and his score just kept going up, and mine just kept going down, and it was like a slow-moving train wreck, just watching it. And in fact, I ended up stopping watching it, because now that I have Movie Pass, and I could just go to the movies whenever I want, I chose to go see it instead of... I chose to go see it... Right. Yeah, I know. I chose to go see a horror movie instead of seeing a horror movie on the field, because I just knew what would happen. I came out of the theater, I looked at my phone and saw that I had lost by 2 points. It was just such a disgusted, helpless feeling. Plus the movie sucked. So, yeah, I mean, and you watched this game, you know what happened. I mean, you told me afterwards that Demaryius Thomas went down with an injury, but right after he got that last catch to get Whalers ahead. And then you said there were 2 fumbles, one that was overturned because it was ruled down by contact, and one that Eli Manning picked up, but that could have made the difference too. I mean, it's just a devastating loss. I mean, I could have been in sole possession of first place. Now I'm pulled back into the mud with everybody else. I only have a 40-point... I mean, I'm still in first, but I only have a 40-point edge on the next best player, which is Eugene, and it's just an absolutely devastating loss. I don't know what to say, and this one's completely my fault. I mean, I have to take responsibility for this. This was all my bad decisions. I mean, I don't know what to say other than that. But yeah, your thoughts?
Yeah, I would have to agree with you there. Everything you just said, you just quadruple guess yourself and see what happens this week.
Yeah, I mean, and
should have played this guy. I would have played that guy.
Yeah, and I mean, the most devastating part about this is now that I'm pulled down to everybody else. I mean, like, and it's so competitive and so cutthroat. I mean, like, honestly, this 2 points can make the difference between having a bye and not having a bye. I mean, it's that devastating that this can affect the entire landscape of this that 2 points can make the difference in this whole season. It's a crushing defeat, and I just don't know what else to say other than that. I mean, it is what it is. All right, well. All right. Well, looking at the standing, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, so we're at the halfway point basically. Now, if we look at the standings, I mean, it's so close. Everything is. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams tied with a 4-2 record. Then you have 1, 2, 3, 4 teams tied with a 3-3 record, and then just right behind them, there's 2 more teams with a 2-4 record. I mean, I don't ever recall seeing a league this close this far into a season. I mean, it really is anybody's game at this point. Yeah, I just don't even know what to make of it at this point. I mean, the difference between 1 and 9 is a game, 1 game, and the difference between 1 and 11 is 2 games. So, you know, hugely competitive. Yeah. But with that, let's move to the games coming up this week. I don't know. Where do you want to start? Dealer's choice.
Games this week. Let's see.
All right. The 2-4-2 teams, second place versus third place. I think this is a good place to start. This is a really important game. The winner of this game could find themselves in first place. I hope not, but they could. The loser of this game, they're still well within it, but has a much more difficult road. Now, right now the projection is 130 to 106 in favor of Eugene. Looking at the lineup, he's got Russell Wilson at the Giants, Cooks versus Atlanta, Baldwin at the Giants, Le'Veon Bell versus Cincinnati. He now has Darkwa versus Seattle, Witten at San Francisco, and Larry Fitzgerald at the Rams. For Nicky, maybe at the moment, he seems to be starting Trubisky versus Carolina. That seems to be a mistake, Bob. But I don't know. I mean, look, Stafford's on a bye this week, his new quarterback, so he can't play him. I thought he picked up Dalton. Did he not? Yeah, he did. I don't know.
He did.
I mean, Dalton's playing at Pittsburgh. I mean, look. What did Dalton do last week? He got 17 points. I mean, look, Trubisky. Carolina's a good defense, and he only got 11 points. I think that is a tremendous mistake right there that he's making. But I don't know. He's got Crabtree going on the Thursday night game versus KC. I mean, that might not be a bad play. Devontae Adams versus New Orleans with the new quarterback. I mean, look, New Orleans is still a defense that gives up a lot, so that might not be that bad a move. But we'll see how well he does with the new quarterback in there. Fournette at Indianapolis. I think that's potential to have a good game, though he's listed as questionable. He had an ankle injury. But he's expected to play. Mark Ingram versus Green Bay. He might actually have a good game. Jordan Reed, I think he's healthy again. Maybe he'll do much better for Washington at Philadelphia. And Deshaun Jackson at Buffalo, which is not that great a matchup. But the Jacksonville defense looking for a bounce-back game against Indianapolis, and I think they might get it. Other than that, I mean, Sanders is out. Stafford on a bye. Aaron Rodgers out. And then he's got Cook, Pryor, and Dalton. I mean, like the only difference or the only change I would make is I would put Dalton in there instead. For Eugene, his bench, look, he's got Bilal Powell, who's still questionable. I mean, I don't even know why he keeps Roethlisberger on the team. Whatever. There's a couple other guys in a bind. Tariq Cohen versus Carolina would be the only difference to make. Would you play Cohen or Darkwa?
Darkwa's been getting some looks, but I would probably play Cohen. That's the guy you paid big money for in free agency.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. So, look. Cooks has been hit or miss this season. I mean, there's games where, he got 32 in one game, but then it's like 6.3, 7.2. I mean, it's really... I mean, there's also the Hogan injury, so he might get more looks this week. In which case, if he does, then all right, he'll do better. I think Bell will do fine. Russell Wilson, I mean, he had 2 weeks where he got 41 and 33, but then he had like 14, 7, and 8. So, I don't know. He's hit or miss too. This Giants team, I mean, they finally got the win. I don't know. I mean, he'll do better than whatever guy Nick puts in there, whether it's Trubisky or Dalton, but it does affect Doug Baldwin's play. And Larry Fitzgerald going against the Rams, who, they're one of the better defenses against receivers. I wonder whether or not he'll have a game like he did last week. But I think it's very possible now that they have Adrian Peterson in there, basically filling in for what was the David Johnson role, and that opens up the receiving core to a lot more opportunities. So I think that I think Eugene wins this game. I don't even think it's that close, to be honest with you.
Most likely, yeah. With Trubisky, I mean, that's the whole thing. With Rodgers out, now it's like Trubisky, really.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
know about that.
I mean, even if he puts in Dalton, I just can't see. I mean, he would need Crabtree to have a great game. We need Adams to really perform at New Orleans. Fournette has to not be injured. He needs a lot of things to go right. I mean, Deshaun Jackson against Buffalo. I mean, this is a tough week for Nicky Baby. I think he falls in this game, and I think Eugene continues his winning streak.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. That would be 5 straight for Eugene. That would be something.
That would be something.
That would be something.
All right. Well, guess we could move on to the next game, which I don't know. What do you want that to be? You want it to be Eugene's buddy, his little office buddy there, versus you?
Oh yeah, his office buddy versus me. That'd be a great game over here. Lombardi over here.
Yeah, I know Lombardi is certainly looking forward to Doug Martin not having a good game. I think he would just relish that opportunity. So the projection right now is 115 to 91. I think that so one of the major things that you got to look at in this game is that Deshaun Watson, is on a bye this week, and that hurts the Hagglers a lot. But you have the backup in Green Bay going against New Orleans. Now that could, we don't know how he's going to perform, but I think that it's an opportunity. I mean, look, New Orleans defense is weak. If he could play, there is an opportunity there for him to do really well. But he could also be horrid. But I mean, I don't know what other options you really have with him out this week. You picked up Eric Decker. I think that's a good pickup. And he's at Cleveland, which I think is a good matchup. Right now you're playing Cooper Kupp versus Arizona. I actually think Kupp might actually not have a bad game versus Arizona. Doug Martin against Buffalo, that's kind of a rough beat, but what can you do? Tevin Coleman at New England, countering Devontae Freeman at New England, so that kind of cancels each other out. Kittles and Bits versus Dallas. I think that he might have an okay game there because also San Francisco has their new quarterback coming in replacing Brian Hoyer. And he might try to use him as a safety valve. And honestly, the Dallas defense, or just Dallas in general, when they've been playing, and they've been pretty high-scoring games. And then you pick up Jack Doyle versus Jacksonville. I think the Jack Doyle pickup is good. I think there's a couple of question marks here still. I mean, first of all, you're hurt by, I know you picked up Alfred Morris in anticipation of Elliott being out, but now he's not, so obviously you can't play him. You have a couple of question marks with Stephon Diggs.
The only other guy who's not injured has a bye.
Right.
So these are the only eligible players once again who will be playing. So what are you going to do? These are literally the only players you can put out there.
Well, yes, though I think that so I don't. Let's look at the status of Stephon Diggs. He didn't practice on Wednesday. Still sidelined by the groin injury. Which if he, I think that's kind of risky to play. Smallwood looks like he might actually come back based on what I read. They're saying that he's expected to play against the Redskins. It's a Monday night game. He practiced. Whatever. If it were me, I would put Doyle in the regular tight end position and maybe play Smallwood. I think you got to monitor that situation. But I don't know, because I think Shepard's still going to be out, and I think Sanu is still going to be out. So I think we'll see if Diggs plays or not, but it looks like he might not. So I think the real question is whether or not you put in Smallwood in the flex and then either move Doyle up to the tight end or just stay with Kittles and Bits. I think that's the question for you.
We're going to be monitoring the injury report because that's all we can with these injured players over here. That's all you can do. So hopefully one of these suckers will be uninjured by the time the game starts.
Yeah. For the Blues, you have Tyrod Taylor versus Tampa Bay. I think he'll do fine. Tampa Bay, they've actually given up a decent amount of points to the quarterback. I think he might have an okay game. Mike Evans, so he's going to be watching that game a lot because Mike Evans is going against the Buffalo defense, which is actually a pretty good defense. And then he's got Brown versus the Rams. We'll see how it affects him in terms of having Adrian Peterson and having that running back in there, if that means more passes for the wide receivers. Devonta Freeman at New England, as I said, I mean, I think that's kind of a. Like Coleman and Freeman have been getting about the same performance out of each other, even though, obviously Freeman is the number one guy there, but they seem to. I think Coleman's catches add certainly points that equal Freeman's rushing totals. So I think that's going to be a wash to some degree. He's got Blount going versus Washington, which those if Smallwood comes in, I think some of those numbers might be hurt a little bit, and I think you could counter some of that there. He has the clear edge at tight end with Zach Ertz, and then Keenan Allen versus Denver. I mean, that's kind of a tough matchup, but yeah, I mean, look, I gotta, I mean, let's put it this way: there have been plenty of weeks where, most of the weeks actually, your projection has been wildly off on your team. I mean, because you pick players that I think the people, the prognosticators, the algorithms, whatever it may be, doesn't ever, like, they don't even register your players. They're like, who, what, and then they give you a horrid projection, and then you exceed it, which has been the case most of the time. I think here the problem is going to be the quarterback situation. I mean, like, if you had Watson in this game, I would actually pick you to win this game. Without him in there, I think it becomes a much tougher proposition. I mean, you need some luck with Cooper Kupp. You need him to have a good week instead of not having, but the Blues doesn't blow me away in terms of the lineup this week, but I think that he, without Deshaun Watson, yes, it becomes a tougher proposition for the Hagglers this week.
Oh, it's gonna be a tough matchup, but again, I gotta pick ourselves, like you always have to. But Tyrod Taylor, Evans, Brown, Freeman, Ertz is always gonna be tough. This should be interesting. I'm sure Lombardi's gonna, have his low end, mid range jargon babble going. Well, this guy's a low end this, and that guy's a top rated that. Well, whatever. All right, let's just see what happens on the field.
Yeah. Absolutely. But yeah, all right. Let's move on to the next game. So I don't know. Where do we want to go?
Well, let's go to the 1603ers versus Nick and Jamie. Let's get it out of the way.
Yeah, this is gonna be a tough game. I mean, first of all, as we mentioned, Nick and Jamie have revamped their team with the Adrian Peterson addition. And the Rams' run defense is not anything spectacular as I've seen in person. That's going to be a problem there, Bob. Brady versus Atlanta. I think Brady has a good game. Antonio Brown always has a good game. Alshon Jeffrey versus Washington. He should do fine. C.J. Anderson was actually disappointing last week. I got to hope for that. Gronk going versus Atlanta. That's great. And then that's great for him, at least. And then Rashard Matthews has been pedestrian, but I mean, he's playing against Cleveland, so certainly an opportunity there. For the 1603ers, Cousins going at Philadelphia. I think he'll do fine there. Then there's a bunch of question marks on my team. So I have Hogan going, though he's been limited in practice with injuries. I mean, there's a chance I might put Amendola in there. I think that might happen. Thalian, I have him starting right now, but I'm monitoring the situation with Stephon Diggs. If Diggs doesn't go, he's definitely going to get the start. If he doesn't, we'll see what we do there. Then they have Hunt and Kelsey tomorrow night against Oakland. I think that is a good matchup for them. McCoy against Tampa Bay. I mean, McCoy will get his normal double-digit points. And I'm going to try to make up for the mistake I made last week by playing Jenkins against Miami this week, and hopefully he, continues to perform there. The New Orleans defense has actually been pretty good the last couple of weeks in terms of points, and they're going against the new quarterback in Green Bay, so maybe they get a higher projection there. I mean, look, right now the projection is 138 to 127, so I mean, it's only a difference of a couple players here and there. Like you, I got in, I picked up Elliott's backup as well, McFadden, but now he's down to nothing now that Elliott will be playing again. I mean, really, I don't know what to do here. I mean, I think I'm going to move Amendola. He'll probably end up playing, but other than that, I mean, I don't know. I mean, look, I picked up the kicker again because I'm never letting him go. Although I think he has a bye next week, so I will let him go again. I'm fine with the defense here. But other than that, I don't know. What would you do here in terms of? Uh, would you play Jenkins? Would you play James White? Would you play Chris Thompson? Who would you play in that flex spot?
I would probably play Jenkins because he's got the hot hand with the Jets.
Would you play him over Chris Thompson? Because Thompson has been Thompson's been pretty hot too.
Monday night, I mean, the Eagles have a pretty good defense though. You gotta watch it.
Yeah, but they give up a lot of points, I feel.
Well, it's the Jets. Remember, don't the Jets are the Jets.
But they are playing Miami, and then Miami is Miami, so.
I mean, Miami's defense is actually pretty decent. You saw what they did to Atlanta in the second half. They shut them down last week, so I think the Jets are in for a tougher game than New England.
Yeah, but I mean, there's not many places for Jets quarterback to go, which is part of the reason why Jenkins has been doing well. He's been getting a lot of targets. Got 11 targets last week. I don't know. I mean, I'm really on the fence with this line.
It's tough. I think that the Miami defense is tougher than they look. I mean, the team looks horrible, but the defense is solid.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm still leaning towards Jenkins at this point, but I do think I'm pretty sure Amendola is going to play instead of Hogan. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. I think. I've noticed that I'm a complete jinx in sports anyway, so I'm going to pick Nick and Jamie in this game. I know that I get mocked for this all the time, but I'm going to pick them anyway. But I know that I'm a jinx. I was going over. I mean, the fact that the Dodgers are going to make it to the World Series probably just proves how much of a jinx I am, being that I've had season tickets for the last 10 years, and then this is the year that I finally gave them up because I thought the prices were too high, and of course they're going to go to the World Series, and they're probably going to play the Yankees. And I could have made a bunch of money just selling the tickets or just going to the games. But no, I didn't. And, yeah, of course they're going to go now. I mean, I could go back on my history of going to watch the New Jersey Devils in person and seeing just the most horrific losses in their history. I mean, I'm just a jinx when it comes to sports. So I'm picking Nick and Jamie because, it's the only way I'm going to pull out a win here.
I look have to go with Nick and Jamie. These guys are brutal. I wouldn't want to play these guys.
I know. I don't want to play them this week. This is a terrible week to play them on top of everything else. Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to, I guess, the lightning rods versus the special team. This is really a question of, I think this is an interesting game. It's a question of whether or not the Whalers can get himself back into the season. I mean, they escaped last week, with their 2-point victory, and they got to follow up on it if they want to have any playoff hopes this week. And knocking down the lightning rods at this point would be good for them. Would be good for them and really bad for the lightning rods, because if the lightning rods can win this, I mean they end up being 4-3, and they would knock the Whalers down to 2-5, really making a chasm between the two. Whereas if the lightning rods lose, they have the same record. So and it becomes a much closer battle. But so let's look at the game. You have Drew Brees going at Green Bay. So you have him going against a team without Aaron Rodgers. That certainly helps, but it is on the road and he doesn't perform well there. And then he also has Michael Thomas at Green Bay. So I don't know. I'm not loving that matchup for either of those guys. Then he has Allen Hurns playing at Indianapolis. I'm assuming people are on a bye this week for him, if that's the case. No, not really. He's just choosing to do that. And, I mean, he's sitting Demaryius Thomas, but that's because he's he's questionable after the injury. I don't know. I guess that's the right decision, kind of. Although Allen Hurns doesn't I mean, who knows? Carlos Hyde versus Dallas, Crowell versus Tennessee, Dixon at Chicago, and then the big man, Ezekiel Elliott, at San Francisco, who I think that's certainly going to be a difference maker there for the Lightning Rods. He's got Cam Newton at Chicago. I think that's a good matchup for him. Tyreek Hill going on the Thursday night game out of Oakland. We'll see if he performs again. Tyler Gabriel at New England. Jay Ajayi, who finally had a reasonable game last week versus the Jets. We'll see if he can pick up on that. And then McGuire, this guy who got nothing last week. I think he's got to. I mean, look, I think he's going to change his lineup up a little bit, and I think he puts in Dez Bryant, or at least he should, especially for Tyler Gabriel. Rudolph versus Baltimore and Martavius Bryant versus Cincinnati. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm going to pick the Whalers in this game, even though I think it's going to be a sloppy game, and I think the difference is going to be Ezekiel Elliott. Again,
I renew my objection for whatever that's worth, which is absolutely nothing at this point. I mean, I am so aggravated with this nonsense.
Yeah. It's quite frustrating, and the most frustrating part is that you have no idea how it's actually going to shake up at the end. Like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, at least if he's going to play, then you know. But now,
frustrating, boss.
Yeah. I mean,
when is this man going to be suspended?
And the two of us have guys on the bench, like, in anticipation of him being suspended, but who knows if it'll ever happen. I mean, and then do you get rid of him? Do you not? I mean, I don't know. I mean, for the Whalers, it's easy. You just keep them for as long as you can with that amazing legal team. But for the rest of us, it's kind of annoying to watch.
It's ridiculous.
But yes, I'm going to pick the Whalers in this game. And I think both these teams end up at 3-4.
Yeah, I'm going to pick the Whalers in this game, too.
Yeah. All right. Then a game that I don't think there's going to be much of a competition of who we're going to pick. House Targaryen versus Black Ice Dynasty. I think, without even looking at it, I think Miner continues to roll to his next victory. Right now, the projection is 117-88. Granted, that's with Golden Tate on a bye, so I would hope that Dr. Hockey makes the adjustment there, and his kicker is not available because he's injured. So if he makes those two adjustments, which you can't ever count on for Dr. Hockey, the projection will at least be closer. But at this moment, Miner has Winston at Buffalo. I don't think that that's the greatest of matchups, but he also has Carson Palmer at the Rams. I might play him if I were him. I mean, Miner's also obviously going to put in AJ Green at Pittsburgh instead. I mean, but I don't know. He's actually got a lot of options. I mean, he's got T.Y. Hilton versus Jacksonville. I wouldn't necessarily. I mean, I certainly cannot predict the performance of T.Y. Hilton, but I would certainly play AJ Green over T.Y. But there's also Brown at the Rams. I might play T.Y. and AJ Green and just put it out there. I don't know. Melvin Gordon versus Denver. I mean, it's a tough matchup, but Gordon has been great this season. McCaffrey at Chicago. I think that's a great matchup. Brate has been fine, and Kamara was pretty good too. So I think, good lineup for Miner there. For hockey, Wentz versus Washington. I think he'll do fine. I guess he puts in Richardson because that's his only other wide receiver for Tate. And then obviously Julio Jones. If I were him, I would continue to play Duke Johnson, even though he only got 6.9 points. And he's got to take Ellington out. And I guess put in DeMarco Murray, who's not been great, but whatever. You got to put him in. Maybe move up Hooper. I mean, play Ingram. I mean, he's got to play Ingram. I mean, if he wants to play Hooper and Ingram, play them both. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad pick, but either way, I'm picking Black Ice Dynasty. I mean, this is a no-brainer. I mean, whatever the right move is, I know that Dr. Hockey will make the wrong one. So even if he does make the right moves, whatever it's going to be. So yes, I'm certainly picking Miner in this game.
Yeah, me too. Without hands down, it's Miner all day long.
Yeah.
Wentz is the only thing for Dr. Hockey. I mean, got to get Tate out of there, one of his best performers. He's got Hooper, another tight end. I think he's picked up every tight end in the league at this point. if you can't still bring a lineup. This hockey, this guy is all the wrong moves and all the wrong places. That's his theme song this season. He's every bit 0-6.
And I think if he moves to 0-7, I mean, look, if he somehow went on a miraculous run and ended up at 7-6 after the season, I mean, maybe he has a chance to make the playoffs, but he has less than no room for error. If he loses this week, I mean, I think it's see goodbye. I think it is anyway. But I mean, if he wants to have any shot, any even remote hope of making the playoffs, he has to win this game, and I just don't think he will. Yeah, I don't think that this game warrants any more discussion than that.
Warrants any more review.
Yeah, so that leaves us with the Millennials versus the Tillett Trey team. This is a very interesting matchup because, well, okay, so you have the Millennials with their victory last week against Dr. Hockey, so I mean, you can't read too much into that. But as I said, he had the McKinnon pickup, which has really helped him. He still has Alex Smith, and Alex Smith is going against Oakland. I think that that's a good matchup for him. And then you also have Tillett Trey having the Dalvin Cook injury and certainly hurting him, which has benefited the Millennials here, playing the guy who would have been in the Dalvin Cook role against him. Look, Tillett has Prescott at San Francisco. I think that's a good matchup for him, but I think Smith at Oakland is a good matchup for him. Jordy Nelson, the question is how. I mean, he's going against New Orleans, but how good is he going to be with the new quarterback in there? I don't know. But then again, he's going against Amari Cooper at this point, so he doesn't really even have to be that good. Jordan Landry has been surprisingly good in terms of points versus Kelvin Benjamin, who's questionable right now. What's the deal with that? Is there any? He didn't practice on Wednesday. He has a knee injury. We'll see. I mean, the Millennials has receiver problems right now, and then even Marvin Jones, who we picked up. So, I mean, I might play Aguilar if I were him there. Certainly, I would play Aguilar for one of these two. I mean, the problem is he has to make a decision on Cooper early because he's a Thursday night game. And then if Benjamin's out, I don't know. I mean, he still has Randall Cobb. I mean... And here's the thing, with Aaron Rodgers out, you never know what the dynamic is. If, maybe this guy likes Cobb more. Maybe he has more of a rapport with him, and, Cobb gets the points that Nelson would have otherwise. I mean, who knows how that's going to shake up. It's a questionable situation, but I don't know. I think he's got to get Cooper out of there.
Oh, yeah, Cooper's, probably having the worst season of anybody in this entire fantasy league.
Yeah, I mean, he's just got to take him out, and then, like I said, put in Cobb, and then if you have to, and then I would also put in, like I said, I would put in Aguilar. He's been fine. And then yeah, you move Cobb up to the wide receiver 2 if Benjamin can't go. And then he could play Ty Montgomery. I mean, he hasn't been that good, but this Lewis guy didn't do anything. I don't know. Find somebody out of the garbage bin. Just don't play Cooper. For Tillett Trey, I think playing Prescott over Matty Ice is the better move. Certainly, especially against San Francisco. Gurley versus Arizona is fine. Look, Frank Gore versus Jacksonville, I don't love that matchup. Although, I certainly wouldn't play Jonathan Stewart. We'll see about Graham. He's finally playing Pierre Garçon again. I think that's actually a good move. And he's got to fix the defense there because they're on a bye right now. But, yeah, I gotta go with Tillett Trey team here.
Yeah, well, I gotta agree. Yep.
I mean,
Trey team all the way.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't think that it's impossible for the Millennials to pick, pull out a game here, but it's really dependent on whether or not they make the moves or not. And it really depends on how Jordy Nelson performs and if Cobb, gets some more touches. And I mean, there's a bunch of X factors in this, but I think that I I think that Tillotray pulls this one out. I mean, if he doesn't, it becomes really interesting, especially if if the Whalers wins and the Millennials win their games. I mean, that becomes even more interesting in this league. you know, but we'll see. But I'm certainly gonna pick Tillotray, looking at this. The potential here. Is that all the games? I think that is.
I think that wraps it up.
Yep. Who are you going with for your lock of the week? I don't even know in this game.
Lock of the week, anybody versus Dr. Hockey.
Yeah, I mean
Minor over Hockey.
Yeah, clearly. I gotta go the same. I mean, because all these other games are actually very much up in the air. I just don't have any idea who's gonna win them, but I do know who's gonna win that game. Yeah. All right. Well, it should be an interesting. I mean, like it's been an interesting season. I think it will continue to be. And we'll see how all this stuff shakes out after this week. I mean, a lot of crucial games. We're past the halfway point at this point. Yeah, really interesting. A lot of storylines also. We'll see how Nick and Jamie improve them. Like if they're for real. We'll see about Eugene's team. We'll see how Nikki Baby performs without Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I certainly think that the 1603ers has been hurt from the Odell Beckham injury. I mean, a lot of question marks, but I don't think we're going to get much clarity after next week either, because I still think it's a dogfight throughout the league. But yeah, I think it's an important week at this point. Let's just say that for a lot of teams. Yeah.
Yep, I would agree. Yep.
All right. Well, I guess that's about it for Geese and myself. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week, where we discuss the shakeout of what happened on this week after the tables were turned after last week. So, all right. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next week. All right. Bye, everybody.